And then there was the Kerry senior footballers. And what can you say about Kerry? I mean, you love to hate them, you hate to love them. They're brilliant when you watch them play, and at times they can play some of the best football on the pitch. But at the same time, in the same breath, they've probably maybe not lived up to the hype in the past couple of years that a lot of people probably thought they had, including myself. 2020, I predicted them to win the All-Ireland, and it didn't quite work out that way. They were beaten by Cork in the semi-finals. Last year, surely they were going to win it, especially with Dublin going out. Tyrone, maybe just not quite there yet. Mayo, we know what they're like in All-Ireland finals. So Kerry, surely this is their opportunity. Surely this is their year, and it didn't quite turn out that way. Peter Keane has since obviously been removed. Jack O'Connor has come back in, a manager who's been there, won it, done it, all the rest. He's the man that you want in charge of the Kerry senior footballers. Probably some new faces coming into the side this year as well. So exciting times for Kerry, and they're definitely going to be up there, no mistake about it. And today I was delighted to be joined by Liam Brosnan, former Kerry senior footballer himself, and he came on the show to discuss all things Kerry ahead of the upcoming 2022 GAA season. We chatted all about last year, what went wrong against Tyrone. We talked a bit about Peter Keane being removed and the whole story behind that. Some fresh faces to come into the panel as well. We also touched on Austin Stacks and some of their success, and also touched on this weekend's game against Saint Finbarrs. And we discussed what could happen for Kerry in 2022. Can they get over the line? Can they end this mini famine and win the All-Ireland? Can they beat Dublin along the way? And who might be in front of them to stop them winning that All-Ireland title? So if you did enjoy this video, I do very much appreciate it. If you enjoyed the podcast, the season previews, all the rest, I appreciate it. There'll be an Armagh and Dublin season preview out later in the week as well, and hopefully a Mayo Tyrone preview to come next week as well. So stay tuned for those videos, stay tuned for all the previews, podcasts, match reactions, absolutely everything. Still going to keep going with the club content as well, so stay tuned for that. My name is Aaron. I'll see you all in a minute.
Well, nowadays you got to have that, because people nowadays.
Before we get straight into the podcast, I just want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Declan Kirby GAA Star. Declan Kirby GAA Star Championship Journey. It's a series of GAA team children's books written by primary school teacher and GAA coach Michael Egan. You can check it out in the link in the description down below, of course, as well. Follow the trials and tribulations of Declan Kirby and his team at Smithgreen Gaelic Football Club, recently formed but promising GAA team. The book is now available in Eason's and all good bookshops, so check it out in the description down below, and let's get straight into it. So I'm delighted to be joined here now by former Kerry senior footballer Liam Brosnan to preview the Kerry senior footballers ahead of the upcoming 2022 GAA inter-county season. Liam, I suppose first of all, you're all set anyway for a bumper Kerry season ahead. We were speaking off air there about some of the club action and whatnot, so you're all set ahead for, I suppose, a big year for Kerry GAA as always, with any other year, I suppose.
Yeah, and look, we're really looking forward to it, I suppose. But with the way it finished up last year, there's a bit of unfinished business down here. I think even the players' minds and a lot of the supporters as well. All the what ifs, Aaron. But it is like we said there just before we came on air. Our club football only finished really there on St. Stephen's Day. You have the McGrath Cup is starting on Wednesday night, and then you have Sigerson. So there's a nice lead in now to get to whet the people's appetite for football and seeing a lot of new players. I think Jack will have a lot of new players thrown into all these games in the next couple of weeks. So look, it's time for the young fellas to step up to the plate and see what they can offer.
And what's the mood been like since that All-Ireland semi-final against Tyrone? Because I suppose I remember the game quite vividly well. I mean, at one stage, it looked like Tyrone weren't even going to play the game. I mean, at one stage, they'd even pulled out a championship because of the whole COVID crisis, and then they come back and obviously win the game and go on to win the All-Ireland. So what's the mood been like in Kerry since that All-Ireland semi-final defeat?
Well, I suppose there's been different moods, you could say, because as you know, the management has changed as well since. Look, getting back to the Tyrone game, leading into it, we had a very good league campaign. Like we kicked, I think, was it 13-16-9 in all the 5 games, and things were moving well. Come to the championship game itself between Clare and Tipperary, then in Cork, and they were still moving well. So we were really looking forward to the Tyrone game. But I think this COVID thing kind of it upset us a small bit, all right, because if you think back to the Tyrone game, I think it was 5 or 6 of the Kerry players went down with cramp. And you can use all the excuses in the world, but when you're trying to get a team to peak for a certain weekend, and it's so professional now, Aaron, and that's the way teams are, it did kind of upset us because it put us back a couple of weeks, and it played us into Tyrone's barrow more than us. This is not a complaining at, but it did affect us. It did affect us a small bit, all right. And I think it showed on the day. And even watching it back there over Christmas, it was on TV, and it was a game that we left after us, even though the neutral mightn't say it, but just looking at small little things like David Clifford not coming out in extra time. No, there were big things for the management, and at the end of the day, there was only a point in it. A couple of silly goals, but look, you got to hand it to Tyrone. They came out of the blocks. They had a plan, and their plan worked, and they went on and won a fantastic All-Ireland.
Yeah, do you think the criticism was even a bit harsh maybe of Kerry a little bit? Because I suppose, like what you said there, I mean, plenty of injuries in the game, and obviously Clifford goes off in extra time, and it was a 1-point defeat to the eventual All-Ireland champions, and like what you said, I mean, there was a lot of disruption for Tyrone, but I suppose there was a fair amount of disruption for Kerry as well. So was some of the criticism a bit harsh, do you think?
It was really. I thought the management put up with a lot of stick as well over it. But look, it was out of their hands. And at one stage, we didn't know, leading into an All-Ireland semi-final, if you're a part of a management team or you're a manager of the Kerry team, you didn't know when you were going to be playing. So it was very hard on the staff and stuff like that to try to get players up to, is it going to be next weekend? Is it going to be the weekend after? And I think that kind of upscuttled things a small bit all right for Kerry. And they did get a lot of stick. They did get a lot of stick over it down here. And look, Lord Mercy and Paddy O'Shea, he had the famous saying about the Kerry supporters, and look, it probably is, it is true. And look, winning All Irelands is the big thing down here. Like if you look back at Peter Keane's tenure, he won 2 league titles, 2 Munster titles, an All Ireland final, went to a replay, and it still wasn't good enough to know. So Jack is stepping into the hot seat, and it's going to be there's pressure on him from the word go, and Jack knows that. Look, Jack has been there, he has done that, and I think that's why he has scouted a lot now for the county championship. A lot of new players going to be put in when stacks are finished. They have 3 or 4 good young guys as well that will be coming in. But like the only thing now, Aaron, is that into county football, young guys, it takes a year or two to bed in. So but at the same time, I think we're only looking for 1 or 2 players. I think maybe. As if we can get our centre back position sorted, I think there will be a change in goalkeeper this year. I see Shane Murphy from Dr. Crokes in there. He's probably our best goalkeeper in the county at the moment. I could see him being very close to Shane Ryan for the number 1 position. And there's only a few small things in, because look, we still have David Clifford, we still have Sean O'Shea, Paddy Clifford, Tom Sullivan. We have a nucleus of a very good team. It's just to get the small little things right on the big day.
Yeah, because it almost seems with Kerry, it just seems to be that balance between attack and defence, and in some ways, like you see in the one year under, well, obviously the year where Kerry got beat by Cork, I suppose maybe Kerry were a bit too overly defensive that year, but maybe the other criticism in the other years is maybe that they've been a bit too attacking and a bit too brilliant going forward, and maybe that's what cost them a bit in the Tyrone game. So do you think maybe it's just about finding that balance of, I suppose, between attack, defense, and maybe with the introduction of some new players like you said there as well, they might, I suppose, help in plugging those holes for Kerry?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. I think we were in a kind of transition because Kerry football was always flair and attacking, and down through the years it has evolved. But I think we're coming to that stage where we have evolved with it, because a lot of club football down here now, players are used to playing in the way even the inter-county has gone. Club managers have set up different systems as well. So it's bidding in a bit, all right. And I think a lot of it as well is that, look, we lost a lot of kind of leaders of the team, the likes of the Aidan O'Mahony's, the Kieran Donaghy's, and these guys, and they're hard to replace. And it's coming to the stage now where we have kind of a new year of, you'd have David Moran, you'd have Paul Gainey, which would be your kind of new lead. I won't say leaders, but the elder statesmen of the team. But then you look at Sean O'Shea and David Clifford; they're still very young. We've been looking at them, like David came straight from minor into senior, and automatically he was an all-star the first year. He's still a very young man. and then his brother Paddy Clifford, the Tom Sullivans, like I said, all these guys, you have new guys coming into the thing now, like Dylan Casey. There's a lot being spoke of down here with Austin Stacks, Joe O'Connor. You have Tony Brosnan, who I did be looking for big things as well in the next year or two as well. So the caliber is there, but it's to gel him, it's to get him. And I think that as well probably didn't help Peter Keane was the COVID leagues, as I call them, the structure. You didn't get enough of games, whereas Jack will have probably a full league campaign this year, and it'll probably help with getting players on the field and getting players game time, especially the young guys. You saw last year Mike Green, who came in and started in wing back lovely, but in the semi-final he was taken off. It was a big occasion. He was just lacking game time and a bit of experience, and that'll stand to him. So I think that'll be a big thing for Jack going forward this year, is having kind of, as we said, normality in the leagues and getting your squad game time and building a squad and get a bit of morale. Because like I said, Peter had 2 great league campaigns, high scoring, winning great games, but we just didn't have enough of games to get guys bedded in, and I think that kind of hindered him in the end.
Yeah, and I suppose it was an interesting decision in some ways of the removal of Peter Keane, because like what you said there, I mean, there was plenty of transition in Kerry, obviously, with a lot of the older guard, I suppose, retiring and stepping away, and a lot of younger players coming through. And then you had COVID as well. And obviously the defeat to Cork was a major setback, no doubt about it, from a Kerry point of view. But I suppose other than that, like, it really wasn't all too bad. Like, probably played a Dublin team in their prime, probably the closest to beating them out of anyone during that 6-in-a-row spell. And then obviously last year, like we said before, plenty of injuries, a long layoff between the games. So was it the right decision, do you think, to remove Peter Keane?
It's hard to know. And like I said down here earlier, look, Kerry is Kerry, and if you don't win All-Irelands, no matter how many leagues or Munster Championships you win, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be pressure on you on winning All-Irelands. And unfortunately, look, Peter was there 3 years. His term was up. It's like any county. You had a certain amount of people who were looking for him to go, and you had a certain amount to stay. Me personally, I thought, look, he could have got another year or two, because I was looking at the overall picture of the 2 years that he had. Like the first year that he had a clean campaign, he won the league, and he got to an All-Ireland final against Dublin, and probably should have won it, in the first game, and lost it in the replay. Second year COVID hit. Third year we're still on COVID. So look, I was kind of in the camp of just give him another year or two and of a full campaign, and let him see what he can produce, because I do think we were climbing steps. All right, we were improving. We lost a lot of the old guard. There was new guys stepping in, but like that, it's a results-driven game. They're on about the Premiership and stuff like that. When you're down here in Kerry and you're listening to the Kerry supporters, and it can be fairly robust at times.
Yeah, I suppose it's no different and up here in Dublin, obviously with Desi Farrell as well after last year and whatnot. I suppose that's probably the harsh reality for a lot of the, I suppose, so-called bigger counties. You've seen it with Tyrone under Mickey Hart as well, obviously, when he stepped away there a year ago. I suppose that's kind of just the way the game is gone, or the modern day era. Like, because I suppose a lot of people were saying, I suppose, the treatment of Peter Keane was harsh, and maybe it wasn't, I suppose, the right way to go about it. But what do you think?
Yeah, look, we usually down here in Kerry don't air our washing in public, and it kind of went public, all right. And it's like everything now with social media, everything just gets out there a lot quicker and stuff like that. But look, we have, when you're looking at it from the other side of it, we have a guy like Jack O'Connor coming into the fray. Like, the man has won everything. I've played under Jack. Jack's a no-nonsense manager. Jack won't give a damn what you'll say, what I'll say, what the supporters will say. He'll do what he sees right, and he'll do a system. And I think, look, whereas in one hand you'll say, right, it's a pity that Peter lost out, but then I suppose we're lucky enough that when you're a team like Kerry, you have probably the best managers want to manage Kerry. And look, I think we have probably one of the best managers in the last 20 years this year. But no more than me and you taking over the team, he's going to be under severe pressure. If he doesn't bring an All-Ireland to Kerry in the next 2 years, he's going to be sitting down here like the two of us, and he's going to be out of a job. So it's ruthless. But like I said, it's modern era football. It's we'll be always on about the Premiership and like that, but the Premiership managers are on a lot more money than Jack O'Connor and Dizzy Farrell and these guys. But for the lot of the stick they put up with, you would wonder why fellas would go for that job.
Yeah, because I suppose for Jack O'Connor in particular, like obviously his third spell as Kerry manager, won the All-Ireland in his first year and in his first two spells. So I suppose there's a good omen there, and I suppose he's coming into a team that's looks ready-made in many ways for an All-Ireland. Like I think they've been favourites. Like Kerry were the favourites last year, obviously once the Dubs got beat, and I think even going into those semi-finals, given Dublin's sort of, I suppose, uncharacteristic performances in Leinster, I think a lot of people felt that Kerry were probably the favourites, and even in 2020 as well, I think a lot of people seen them as the team to maybe go all the way to the final and challenge Dublin, I suppose, the closest more than anyone. So like they've got the players there, like you said before, and with a manager like that coming in, I mean, I'd imagine there's definitely a lot of excitement and pressure at the same time for Kerry this year.
Yeah, and it's like you said, I think I seen it last night that Kerry and Dublin are favourites again this year for the title. I think, but it's going to be very exciting, and I think down here as well there's a bit of excitement because we know that we have the squad, we have the players with a few tinkles here and there that'll rattle us, but we'd be hoping that the Jack factor might push it over the line a small bit. We're just short that little bit, and hopefully this year that you'll always get a kick off a new manager, and I think with Jack at the helm, Jack plays a kind of a system as well where he looks rough for a number 11 that's like a playmaker, and I do think there's guys there like Paddy Clifford and Shawnee Shea that will fill that role for him, whereas he did it for years with Declan O'Sullivan. He likes that. Even his under 21 teams that he took over in his minor teams, he had a structure like that, and I think Jack will bring something different to the Kerry team this year. And look, he's brought down Paddy Talley. There was a lot of noise as well down here about that being a Tyrone. I think it wasn't so much about being Paddy Talley. It was that he was a Tyrone man, from a lot of fellas, because I suppose with the fun that we have with the last decade with Tyrone, but I think Paddy will bring a lot to the setup as well. And professional coaches aren't very hard to get around the country, and look, we'll look forward to see what he can bring to the table.
Yeah, I was going to mention Paddy Talley as well, because do you think there'll be an emphasis maybe more so on defence this year, and maybe I suppose finding that balance, maybe because we've seen last year with Kerry, they love to get the cornerbacks forward and the wing backs forward, and I suppose overly attacking in many ways. So I think with Paddy Talley in there, could there be more emphasis, I suppose, on that defensive of unit and structure of the team, and maybe I suppose a bit of a style change to what we've seen from Kerry last year?
I wouldn't say there'll be a massive change. I think what we need really is a number 6 that'll hold. I think that's the big thing, and I think if they can find a number 6 that can hold, like we have very athletic wing backs when you have the likes of Gavin White and even Mike Breen and Tom Sullivan and Brian Begley and all these guys that can get up the field. It'd be very hard to stop that, but you need a number 6. And I think that's hurted us against Tyrone this year as well. Wide open. If you look at the goals they got, wide open down to the middle. Now, if you're number 6 and you're number 7 and the number 5 are travelling up and down the field, I would not like to be playing inside the full back line, because you have no cover whatsoever. So there will be a different, probably a different structure, all right. But I'd be very surprised if he deviates away from. Some people call it the Kerry way, attacking football. There's no point having the likes of David Clifford and Shawnee Shea and Paul Gainey and all these guys up front if you're not going to kick the ball into them. And I just hope that, because you live by the sword, you die by the sword. If Jack goes down that road, I don't think it'll be accepted down here in Kerry, because the Kerry supporters want to see football going forward. They don't want to see ball going backwards and over and back. So I think for Jack's sake, he wouldn't want to go too defensive, because for years, I suppose, when we didn't have forwards like David Clifford and these guys, you'd have a reason for it. But now when we have scoring forwards, I think, look, at the end of the day, when you put the ball over the bar and hit the back of the net, that's what win games. But you need a balance. But I think a number 6 will be a big thing for us this year. A sitting number 6 that's not going to be roaming around the field.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I suppose first up for Kerry in the league is Kildare as well, which I suppose has that added spice to it now as well, with the fact that Jack O'Connor will be going up against his his former team. Like, I suppose normally you'd look at that game and see that would be a nice start for Kerry. I suppose probably playing the weakest team in the league on paper anyway in Division 1, but I suppose now it has that extra added spice to it, and I'm sure the Kildare lads will be fired up for it as well.
Exactly, yeah. And look, Kildare are always a tough nut above Newbridge anyway. You know, a nice tight field. You know, they will love to get Kerry into it, and especially the first day, because you know teams are already back training, and it'll be the big outing. Probably a lot of new faces on the field, so there'll be a bit of pressure on those guys. You know? So yeah, look, the league, like I said, the league is going to be a very important thing for Kerry and for all teams this year, because they're going to have time to get players games. You know, there's not going to be just 3 games next year into championship like it was last year, or 4 games. It'll be a proper league series. You know, it'll give us more time as well to look at players and look at teams and see where they're going. But yeah, I think Jack will want to get off to a good start. I think Kildare would be a game that when you sit back at the start of the year, that you'll be saying, right, they're points that you should be picking up. You know, because there's a lot of good teams in Division 1.
Yeah, I suppose we've seen Kerry treat the league very seriously, obviously, over the past 2 to 3 seasons. Obviously, been in the final twice. I mean, last year it would have been a league final. Obviously, there was no league final played, and they won the league the season previous. So how do you think Kerry will approach the league this year? Do you think they'll treat it with the same sort of seriousness and they'll go as strong as they can, or do you expect there maybe to be a few changes and maybe a lot of rotation throughout the league campaign?
There definitely will be a few changes, but it's like everything. I think the league is a great barometer for championship. If you look in the past 10 years, the guys that have won the league, the teams that have won the league, the teams that have done well in league competitions have done well in championship. Now, you just can't switch, flick a switch and turn things on if you have a bad league. You know, momentum is great, and I do think that Kerry will be taking this very seriously. They will have different guys put in around the place, but I think the nucleus of the team will be the same. You know, you might have 2 or 3 changes in the area, but I think like the up to 10 10 or 11 players will be a lot of your main guys, and then there might be 2 or 3 guys dotted in around the place. As the league goes on, depending on what kind of results they get, you know, you could start blending players in more and you know, giving guys rests and stuff like that. But no, I can see Kerry will go all hell bent for this, because look, the championship doesn't belong rolling around. It's what it is. It's in the Ireland finals in July. You know, so you've 6 months really from now to, you know, so that's not a whole pile of football either. So I think it will be yeah, there'll be no holding back from Kerry. Definitely not.
What new faces even do you think could even come into the team maybe in 2021? Like you mentioned, a few of the Austin Stacks lads maybe might break in there. I suppose Paul O'Shea's been a player that I know a lot of fans really have been excited to see come into the Kerry senior team over the past couple of years. So what faces maybe could you see break onto the team in 2022?
Yeah, like I said at the start, I think our goalkeeper, I think Shane Ryan, I think people who have seen him with Dr. Crooks down through the years, a very, very good goalkeeper, will probably be very close to, sorry, that's Shane Murphy, not Shane Ryan. Shane Ryan is our Rathmore present number 1. But I think Shane Murphy will be very close to the goalkeeper position. You have guys in, like, say, Dylan Casey. I'd like to see more of Dylan. You know, yes, he's playing with a Stacks team where he has a lot of guys playing in front of him. You know, he's been well-minded. He's playing very well. It'll be interesting to see him in situations in one-on-one, you know, against inter-county footballers in the coming months. Joe O'Connor is a very exciting prospect as well from Stacks, midfielder from Stacks, has been inside the Kerry panel with the last year or so. You know, so I think he's a guy that's going to feature a lot this year for us, looking probably around the wing forward position. You have other guys in. Well, you have Paddy Clifford, who's only after year 1 of an intercounty, you could say an intercounty career. So Paddy is going to have a big say as well, and he's one of our main guys now as well. Mike Breen last year, his first year as well. You know, so you have guys who have probably got a bit of experience on their first year, who will be probably, you know, a lot of people won't know them, you know, as household names, but they'll be starting to peep their heads above the pulpit now, and they'll be wearing the Kerry jersey more often. There's a guy there as well, another Crokes forward, Tony Brosnan, you know, very exciting young forward, kind of cursed with injuries with the last 2 years. I'd be hoping if he gets an injury-free run that he'd be an exciting forward inside there with the likes of Paul Gainey and you have Dara Moynihan and these guys. So there's a lot of guys, and there's a lot of other guys in there as well. Like you have Dara Roach from Glenflesk, and I do think in the next week or two with COVID situation, with everything, there'll be a lot of other guys that are going to be pulled in as well. And you never know in a game like that who might step up to the plate and say, yeah, he might offer something. But like you have, like I mentioned, 5 or 6 players there between Stacks and guys who were on their first year last year. I think it's going to be. I think they're the guys that will probably be getting the most time to shine for Kerry.
And what have your thoughts been on general, I suppose, on Austin Stacks in 2021 and obviously now going into 2022? I suppose very good year in 2021, but won both club championships and Kerry obviously beating Kenmare Shamrocks in the club championship final, and obviously in the county championship then I suppose beating the likes of East Kerry, St Brendan's, and eventually Kerrins O'Ratley's. So I suppose a very good year in many ways for Austin Stacks, and I suppose they're well placed now maybe for a run in the All-Ireland series if they can get past Finbarrs next weekend.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big game next weekend for them. I think that'll be a big test. I saw Finbarrs in a couple of games and on TV, and they're an exciting team going forward as well. But the one thing with Stacks, and they've proved it all year, is that they're solid. They're very structured. When they get ahead of you, it's very hard to pull it back. Like there was a couple of games down here in the championship where teams went down 3 or 4 points, came back and drew it and went ahead of them, and Stacks came back and won the game. So they're not a team that panics that do panic. And with guys like obviously Kieran Donaghy up front leading the four, they're young, they're fit, they're big young fellas. Wayne Guthrie, Wayne in goals then as well. Very kind of one of these goalkeepers. He's like a fly goalkeeper. You could see him out on the half-hour line, half-back line as quick as anything. But under Wayne Quinlan, Wayne has done a fantastic job in the last. I'd nominate Wayne is really a Stacksman to the core, and I think he started off a lot of these guys at minor level and came up with them. But very structured, very strong. The only failing I have with them, to be honest, Aaron, is I still think that they're finding it hard to get scores. They have no marquee forward, and I think coming to a stage now where amongst the finals, All-Ireland semi-finals, All-Ireland finals, you probably meeting teams that would have big marquee forwards. And now they have a young fella called Sean Quilter, and I think he, in the years to come, he will be a guy that we will be talking about. But at the moment, for me, the goals and points, at times when they come across, good teams, that it could end up like against East Kerry there. I think it was a very low scoring game. They're probably one of the most low scoring teams to ever win the championship in Kerry. But like that, they do strangle you as well. If you're good forwards and the opposition end, they have defenders that can, and they have a structure that can keep a game low scoring as well. But I think that's the only failing they have. Other than that, they'll be very hard to break down. But if they meet a team that can bang in goals and kick points from a distance, I think they could struggle against that. But other than that, is there many teams out there this time of the year, winter football, that can kick points from 40 and 50 yards out and goals? I think they're perfectly set up for winter football because they're big, they're strong, they're fit, and they can move up and down the field in waves. And I think that's what's doing them justice at the moment.
And I'd imagine the main, I suppose, target will be trying to limit, I suppose, Stephen Sherlock and obviously his influence for Saint Finbarrs, and I suppose plenty of talent on their side as well. So, but if they can shut out the likes of David Clifford and Tommy Walsh, I'm sure they'll definitely take a lot of confidence going in against I suppose a marquee forward like that for Saint Finbarrs.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying about marquee forwards. They're going to come across a lot of marquee forwards now in the next part of their run to the All-Ireland campaign, and they're going to be looking at the likes of the Dylan Casey's, the Jack O'Shea's, and these guys to do what they've been doing all year. Can they keep it going? Look, they're young fellas, they fear nothing. I suppose they're on an exciting run now. It's something new for them, and they don't want it to end. And if they can get over Finbarrs, I think they'll give it a right rattle. And looking at them in the last couple of weeks and their training through Christmas and stuff like that, they're putting in a colossal effort. And look, Finbarrs will have to be on, at their peak as well to beat Stacks. But look, Stacks will definitely have their homework done, like they did at Newcastle West. Like that Newcastle West that they made very easy work of wasn't a bad Newcastle West team. I don't know, they have a lot of Limerick footballers in Corbett there in the middle of the field, nominated All-Star. You know, a lot of guys like that, and Stacks made very easy work of them. So they could surprise us. They're surprising us all year, Aaron. Even down here in games, and they seem to be winning games handy at times when you don't think they should be winning them. So it's going to be. I think that game next weekend is going to be very good.
Yeah, and I suppose the Kieran Donaghy story as well. And I suppose maybe the one last All-Ireland hurrah maybe for himself, or maybe he'll keep going, because I think a lot of people maybe didn't realise he was still playing for Austin Stacks at senior level anyways. Normally when a lot of lads get to that age, maybe they'll start playing junior football or drop down a few grades. But I mean, he seems to be kept very busy anyway, whether he's on the pitch for Austin Stacks or coaching with Armagh, or obviously doing a bit of punditry with Sky. I mean, he seems to be everywhere at the minute, and it will be quite the story for 2022 if he was to be a part of that Austin Stacks team that maybe went all the way.
Oh, definitely, Aaron. Look, I'd be good old buddies with Kieran. He was involved with me in the Sigerson Cup in Tralee for a year as well, and what a fantastic guy. I know he's written a book, but I'd say you could write another book about him. He's a guy that is just, I don't know how he does it, but the body, obviously when he comes home, the body is in bits, but he's ready to go again in a day or two. And not only that as well, he's playing basketball as well on top of it at a very high level. So the man never stops. And then he sits into the car and he's driving up and down for work, and then he's up to Armagh. Sometimes I wonder how he does it. And his wife Hilary there, I'd be scratching my head at times, and she said, does she ever see him? But he is ahead of a 21-year-old. That's the way he's thinking. He thinks he's still 21, even though the body is 38. He still thinks he's 21. He's incredible. He's not going to give it up. There's no way. You'll see Kieran playing for another year or two at least after this year. And now it would be fantastic if he could go on and come to the peak of the mountain and win an All-Ireland club with Stacks. But I can see that man playing. He'll keep playing until the body tells him that he can't play anymore. And he looks after himself very well. He's a guy that's he does his stretches, he does his bit of recovery, and you have to. I suppose he wouldn't be playing if he wasn't. But it's his. I think mentally, I think that's his biggest asset. Mentally, I think upstairs when you're talking to Kieran, this guy just he doesn't do no, and he doesn't. If you ask him to do anything, he will do it. And I presume if you're a manager of Austin Stacks or manager of Tralee Tigers, Warriors inside, it's the same thing. If you ask Kieran to do a job that a 21-year-old to do it, Kieran will do it, and he'll try to push himself the way he can say, right, I can do it better than a 21-year-old. And I think that's what keeps Kieran the way Kieran is. I think it's just mentally he's a very strong person.
Yeah, I think he's putting us all to shame in many ways. By the way he's still going, I suppose, at the level he's still going at. I suppose getting back to Kerry then, what's the expectation for this year then in 2022? Is the All-Ireland the minimum requirement, the main requirement, like what you said before? I suppose All-Irelands are expected in Kerry. It's the same obviously here in Dublin, same in many other counties as well. But is that the main objective and the main aim? Because I suppose it'll be 8 years obviously come July if Kerry haven't won an All-Ireland. So I suppose that kind of gap is building, I suppose, year on year.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. As I say down here, we're in a mini famine at the moment, and I do think that with the new manager coming in and everything, I think there's going to be pressure on Jack. Minimum requirement every year down here in Kerry is winning in All-Ireland. Allows him Lord Mercy and Weesley Forkety, who I was on the radio one night, and we were after getting done the 21 management team as John Kennedy was manager, and I was brought in as a selector. And Weesley, he said, "No, Liam," he said, that if you don't win in All-Ireland, it's a failure here in Kerry. And what, them words always stood out in my head, and he's dead right. If you don't win in All-Ireland, it is a failure down here. So it's that's the minimum requirement. A league, I'd like to see is a good solid league campaign with kind of a couple of new guys coming in. I'd like to see a couple of new faces two or three new faces that you could say, right, we can use them when it comes to championship. And obviously the Munster campaign then, like Cork have a new management as well. We kicked 4-22 against Cork last year, 1-9, so they're going to be hurting. They're going to be looking for a bit of revenge as well. So when it comes to championship, we can't be looking too far ahead, because I think we learned our lesson 2 years ago above in Cork, that if you look too far ahead, you could be burned very quick. But like I said, minimum requirement is an All Ireland, always is down here in Kerry. But I'd like to see a good solid league campaign, and where that takes us, then I think that if we can build a bit of momentum through the league and stuff like that, we have players that that can get us over the line.
Yeah, and who I suppose would you be most wary of in that aspect then for Kerry going for the All Ireland? I suppose we've seen last year, it seems more wide open this year in terms of the All Ireland scene. There's probably 4 or 5 counties really that feel they could probably go all the way in the All Ireland Championship this year. So is there any sides I suppose you'd be wary of if Kerry were to come up against in 2022?
Yeah, look, you look at Connacht there, you have Galway and Mayo. No, the Galway spots are kind of unpredictable at the moment, but they're still a team that can really put it up to anyone in the country when on the day. Mayo obviously are Mayo. I feared, actually, believe it or not, I feared Mayo more than I feared Tyrone last year before we ever played Tyrone. I thought Mayo were going to be very hard to beat, because they're a team that didn't suit us. I always thought they matched up well with us physically as well, and sometimes we didn't like that. We in the league final not too long ago as well, they kind of bullied us a lot. I was always afraid of Mayo. You go up to the north, anything can happen in North Ireland. Look, you have, like we said there, Kieran Donaghy with Armagh. They were moving very well last year. Monaghan, Donegal, Tyrone. Like that's just one that's very hard to predict who could come out of that, because the Ulster campaign is always an enigma up there, because it's so vicious. And then you come down to Leinster. Look, you're probably looking at Dublin, all right, in Leinster. But overall, I suppose, look, the bookies are never too far away, and I think they have Dublin up there as well as favourites. I think Dublin, after last year, look, you can't write off a team that after winning. There's that many All Irelands. They're hurting after last year. They know what defeat is, and I suppose, look, the monkeys off the back now as well, because they're after losing, and there's a bit of pressure off them. And I think they will be the team this year that you'd probably be fearing the most, because they're not gone nowhere. They still have very, very good footballers there. They have once in a lifetime footballers. They're still there, and I think they'll be the biggest obstacle this year. Again, it's going to be Dublin.
Is there any surprise teams there you think that might cause maybe a shock or two? I mean, we tend to see this, I suppose, year in, year out when teams go on surprise runs. Is there any teams there you think could maybe cause a shock or two this year?
Well, you see, I'd be hoping there'd be no shock down here in Munster, but Cork with Keith Rickard now was who I suppose we've all listened to his interviews, we've all seen him from afar and different things. He looks like a guy that can really bond the team, get guys playing for him. They will be dangerous in a once-off game. They will be dangerous down here. But if we could get a good, like I said, that's why we need a good league campaign coming into it, because if we don't have too many good games leading into a Munster semi-final or a Munster final, so you need competitive games and good league games to get Kerry up to speed. Whereas I suppose above an Ulster, it's different when you have a lot of teams up there where every game is an Ulster final in an Ulster championship. So look, you're going to be looking at Kildare and Meath. Can they do anything? Will they rattle Dublin? I don't think so. I think Galway and Mayo could be the one. All right, Galway could. Mayo. In a Connacht final or Connacht semi-final, you just don't know what could happen there. I'm not writing off Roscommon either, but at the same time, I still think that Galway and Mayo would have probably too much in the forward division and stuff like that for the likes of Roscommon and these guys. So. Look, usually every year when you sit down and you pick your 4 or 5 teams that could be in an All Ireland semi-final, you're very rarely too far away. I suppose, especially with the way the championship is now, when you go from provincial, when it was the kind of the back door and stuff like that, you never know. One of the weaker teams could have a big day and beat a big team. But I think that day is gone now again. I think the big teams are so well set up and so well structured now, and coming into campaigns that very rarely would they be caught.
Perfect. Well, look, listen, cheers anyway, Liam, for coming on, and I suppose, yeah, best of luck for Kerry in 22. I hope you don't beat Dublin anyways by any stretch of the imagination, but look, listen, I'm sure it'd be great to see a Kerry and Dublin classic again at some point anyway this year.
Yeah, I think is it semi-final stage we can meet this year?
I think it is, yeah.
Stage, yeah. So we might go for a pint after that.
Maybe, yeah. Well, if Dublin win, maybe we will. We'll see. or maybe we won't. Maybe be drowning the sorrows again.
Yeah, or it could be a draw like every game against Dublin with the last couple of years.
Yeah, it could easily be.
Yeah. No, so perfect. Fingers crossed for a good championship anyway. And look, and with this COVID and everything now, hopefully that thing goes away and we can enjoy our football.
Absolutely, yeah. Like hopefully they can have fans back as well and crowds, because you even seen in Dublin and Kerry games down the years as well with the fans and all the rest. I mean, it's definitely, I always think back to 2013 and that game, like that was an incredible game, really an incredible atmosphere. So it'd be great to see, I suppose, a Dublin and Kerry game, or any, Dublin Mayo, whatever, Mayo Kerry, with full packed crowds and all the rest. Like I think that's what we all want to see really this year.
Exactly. We need crowds back. Look, we've been at games where in the last couple of years where there was no fans, no nothing. We were lucky enough through radio or through TV that we were stuck in it. But like it wasn't the same really when you come out of it. It was just kind of like coming out of a challenge match or coming out of a training session. Whereas when the crowd started coming back, it's a great buzz, and you want to go to meet the characters. Like we have a big Kerry supporters club down here, and the characters that go around in it. And I find that the most enjoyable part of it, when you go to games and you're meeting these guys, and everybody has an opinion. And my opinion is different to your opinion and the next person, and so I suppose, look, that's what makes the GAA the way that the way the GAA is, and that's what we enjoy about it, and fingers crossed that that we can get back to a bit of normality again this year.
Perfectly. Well, top man, appreciate you coming on.
No, Baron, cheers.